This award honors an individual with expertise in clinical practice specific to thanatology as demonstrated by honors, awards, reputation in nominees' area of specialization, judgment by peers, supervisors, and or administrators, and clients. The criteria is that the individual provides contributions to the field of thanatology as demonstrated by innovations in practice, dissemination of knowledge based on personal experience and or research, leadership and organization focusing on clinical practice as it relates to dying, death, and bereavement and or non-death loss. This year, we have awarded 2 clinical practice awards because we have 2 incredibly fabulous candidates.
Our next recipient is Ms. Heather Stang. Heather is a thanatologist, yoga therapist, and author, specializing in mindfulness-based approaches to grief. She is the founder of the Mindfulness and Grief Institute, where she facilitates Awaken, an online mindfulness-based grief support group that integrates meditation, journaling, and movement. She also hosts the Moving Grief podcast and Mindfulness and Grief podcast. Heather's work is rooted in both personal experience and academic training. After earning a master's in thanatology from Hood College, shout out for those here, she developed the Mindfulness and Grief System, an 8-step framework blending meditation, movement, and journaling to support bereaved individuals. Her books, including Living with Grief, which was formerly Mindfulness and Grief, Navigating Loss, and the guided journal From Grief to Peace, translate academic research into practical tools for both grieving individuals and professionals. Heather is a speaker and educator for organizations including ADEC, NHPCO, TAPS, Hospice Foundation of America, and the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. She's contributed chapters to multiple grief therapy textbooks. Her passion extends to supporting professionals in the field, helping them mitigate burnout, compassion fatigue, and vicarious trauma through mindfulness and self-care practices. Congratulations, Heather. Oh, that's good. I got that. Just in case they walked away. Wow. So, as often when we are trying to console a friend or a client with grief, in grief, sometimes words don't quite carry the weight. And I can say that today I'm struggling to find words to express the gratitude I have for those of you in this room and those of you not in this room, those of you on this earth still and those who aren't, for helping me not only with the scholarship, but personally supporting me. But I have a microphone and 2 to 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to find some words. But first, glasses. So to start, many of you probably do not know that our colleague, Rebecca Morse, was my professor at Hood College when I was getting my master's in thanatology. I took her Death and Music seminar and turned in what I thought was a brilliant paper on Sinead O'Connor and her complicated relationship with her mother. Rebecca handed it back ungraded and said, "You can do better." And because she believed that I could, I did. And also I didn't want an F. I was inspired to study thanatology after my Uncle Doug died by suicide, something that happened when I was a child. And that grief went untended to for years until as an adult, a stress-related illness appeared in my body and forced me to confront that unresolved loss. I had to learn how to care for myself in the midst of deep pain. And by the time I enrolled at Hood, I was a certified yoga therapist and deeply curious about the intersection of mindfulness, yoga, and journaling in helping bereaved people not only cope with loss, but show up for themselves with compassion
and eventually rebuild a meaningful life. I began leading Yoga for Grief groups using Dr. Bill Worden's 4 Tasks of Mourning as a foundation, and using Dr. Bob Neimeyer's Meaning Reconstruction as my guiding light. 4 years later, I interviewed those participants and matched their lived experiences with the thanatology theory I'd learned. And that work became the Mindfulness and Grief System, the 8-step process Rebecca mentioned. And I want to shout out to Bob a second, because when I first came to ADEC as a student, I wasn't sure if a yoga therapist even belonged here. But his early encouragement and that warm welcome that I received showed me that ADEC is something truly special. You all, now I guess we all, have created a home for innovation, integration, and people who come to this work through different doors like I did. Then came 2020, and the world was grieving, and so was I. I was navigating a parental estrangement with my father, the end of my marriage, and my publisher happened to reach out and say, "We'd like you to write a book on non-death loss." And I did while I was living non-death loss. And I owe a deep debt of gratitude to Dr. Darcy Harris, whose work on non-death loss gave me both the scholarship and the language I needed. But more than that, Darcy embodies compassion herself and supported me both personally and professionally as I wrote that book, and even inspired me to learn how to ride a horse. And like Dr. Ken Doka's work on disenfranchised grief, Darcy's influence runs through every page of that book, which, like all of my work, weaves together thanatology, mindfulness, journaling, and self-care to support people who are navigating all types of loss. And a heartfelt thank you to Lindsay Whistle-Fenton, producer of Speaking Grief, for helping me shape the language of navigating loss to ensure it reflects many voices, not just mine. And now for you all. For first-time attendees, I just want to say I see you. I was you. You belong here. I hope you come back. And I hope you let your curiosity lead you. And for all of us, I hope that during this conference we can embody that idea that our story is part of our work, and that you can tune into your inner child's mind, be open, unguarded, and willing to learn, and practice a little more self-compassion along the way. Because while we share this with our clients, we need this now for ourselves more than ever. So thank you very deeply.